Joining me on the Bowl kind of hotline to get into all of this stuff is the one and only Brendan Robinson. Follow him on Twitter at ScoopB. NBA Insiders, all guests. He joins us here on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Brendan, how you doing today?
Gentlemen, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me as always. Basketball, is it here or is not? That's the $1 million question.
Well, part of that $1 million question is the fact that, I've been reading and listening to a lot of different stuff, and you're as connected as anybody. So I ask you, if the NBA is not going to tell us everybody who tested positive, and they're expecting there to be positive tests, should we be okay with that being the new norm?
I mean, it seems as though that's the cost of doing business right now, simply because you're bringing people who some are international players who went back to their native land. You have some people who went back to their respective city that's not necessarily in the city that they played in. And you're bringing and mixing a bunch of different things together, and you don't know who has what and who touched what. And I think that the concoction of everything under one bubble is very interesting. And I think that's why you're beginning to see more and more players voicing their opinion, whether it's publicly, privately, via social media, or if it has anything to do with not COVID, it has something to do with civil rights. It's a mixed bag, sir.
It is a mixed bag because, I find this very interesting. The first three names we hear about, all three of them, it's not about COVID-19. For Trevor Ariza, David Bertans, or DeMarcus Cousins. For DeMarcus, he wants to focus on his rehab. For Bertans, he's worried about re-injuring his ACLs. And for Trevor Ariza, he wants to spend time with his son because he doesn't have full visitation rights. So what does it say about the players that it's not all one thing or another, that there's a lot of more layers here involving the NBA's return that's been discussed previously?
Well, you have to take into consideration, seriously, that in normal times, summertime is the off season. And, if the regular season went as it was supposed to go, you look at the situation, it'll be July when they're playing. If Portland would be on the outside looking in, if we look at March 11th as the line of demarcation of, where their seedings were. So in Trevor Ariza's case, it's that, but there are some, I'll say that there are some guys who on the outside looking in, like a J.R. Smith and others who I've spoken to, who are looking for the opportunity to go in and seize the moment and, sign with a team. So there's a lot of different perspectives based upon where players are in their career. But in the case of Trevor Ariza, yes, it's the legal ramifications of it. He's got to spend a month with his kids. Then you look at Kyrie Irving. It's a situation about social justice, but also hearing people out concerning their health, as him being the VP of, the Players Association.
You mentioned about Kyrie, and I know this is something you have reported about how, the coalition was less about, boycotting the bubble than it was having questions answered. And it seems to me, and I'm asking you for clarity on this because, again, you're as connected as anybody. Is it just me, or does it seem like Kyrie became the scapegoat for a lot of this?
You're nailing it right on the head. And I think a lot of it has to do with lack of understanding. So you have to take into consideration. Kyrie Irving is the vice president, one of the vice presidents of the Players Association. And so if guys that are in that Players Association are voicing to him their concerns, it's his job to let that be known. But I think in the Twitter world, the 24-hour news coverage that there is, things get lost in translation. There was a conference call a couple of Fridays ago, and many players were on it. It was about 80 guys. And essentially, after the conference call was over, there were a bunch of tweets that were put out there, people just taking quotes, and attributing it to Kyrie. But there were other people on that call, like Chris Paul, who expressed to guys on that conference call, that let's not share everything out there because it's not just players on this call, which is fine. But I think in this day and age, because many people dislike Kyrie for a myriad of different reasons and being a free thinker and more, it's attributed to the way it is. I can tell you that on that call, there were a lot of guys who expressed, their disinterest in playing because of COVID and because of they feel as though civil rights, now is the time to get people's attention while COVID is going on and everything is shut down. But also from a working perspective, those guys don't want to get sick. They don't want to be 3 to 4 months removed from their family, not able to see them. There's so many other factors that go into it. But, yeah, Kyrie does get villainized, and he does. I know that, he feels scapegoated. I know that he feels as though, he's not been treated fairly. But, that's par for the course when you're a $1 million athlete. He gets the game.
Brandon Robinson joining us here on the Boardwalk Kind of Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at ScoopB for all your NBA news. Brandon, speaking of the coalition, they brought up a lot of points. Avery Bradley had that very eloquent thing he put out there just about a week and change ago. How many of the concerns of those players do you think have actually been addressed by the league?
I don't know. I know that one thing I'll add is, Avery Bradley has been the spearhead of that coalition. Kyrie and Avery Bradley are on the same page. I think that gets lost in translation as well. The NBA stance on it, what I do know is that, if you feel how you feel about it, you don't have to come and you don't have to play. Stay home. You'll still get paid. Kind of like a poem. But anyway, I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to if the NBA does not restart their season, they lose about $2 billion. And then just to give you some clarity, part of the reason why you have these preseason games, you bring 22 teams and you have these preseason games is because if they play, I believe it's 70 games, the league gets the rest of the money from the contract from, TNT, ESPN, or what have you. And that's really what they want to bring home. They've already operated at a loss because fans can't come, season ticket holders, and more. That being said, I think the NBA is looking at it from a business perspective, and I think the players are looking at it from a myriad of different lenses, the social justice perspective, the COVID-19 health perspective. And, I talked to some guys who basically are like, I haven't picked up a basketball, since we got sent home since COVID. So for some people, there's a lack of interest and a lack of conditioning. Like, I've spoken to some retired players who, were either involved in the first lockout, the 98-99 season, or the lockout shortened season, I believe 2011. And I asked them how much of this reminds them of that back then. And they said, it's similar. The thing that they're concerned about is guys who basically have just taken off, all their conditioning has worn off, and then they want to step on the court and play basketball. They may get hurt. That's from their perspective what they see. That's where they see the similarity being. If you remember back in the 98-99 season, Sean Kemp came back and gained all that weight. He was never the same again because he was just home. For some NBA players, basketball gets them away from home and takes their mind off of the pressures of home. Now they're home. There's that factor too.
We know the report came out this morning that the NBA and the NBPA, the Players Association, came to an agreement on this new extended insurance. How much could that have an impact on players deciding to come back? Is that a positive for the players to say, all right, well, at least we have some insurance for those of us who are up for extensions, who are up for contracts?
Yeah, I think that'll definitely be chatter amongst players and owners and more. I also think the other part of that they should be considering and looking at is if players and the league do not come to a consensus on this season, will owners then create the force majeure and rip up the current CBA, which I think is extended through 2023, 2024, if I'm not mistaken. But I think there are so many other legal ramifications, legal concerns, insurance concerns that people are still sifting through. I think these are conversations. And I know that there are a lot of agents. There's some agents that I've spoken to that say, they're telling players just play because if you don't show up this year, it's going to give the owners the upper hand, as it relates to like just various incentives and other things that go into the player's favor that they may take back. And I think the other thing that's worth considering and looking at is what the collective bargaining agreement is going to look like next season, or rather the salary cap is going to look like next season because of the China issue, as well as, the issue with Daryl Morey. I want to be specific, Daryl Morey and the comments he made and just China's reaction, but also, all of the different China entities that deal with the NBA. But also, in addition to that, I'm also looking at just what the coronavirus pandemic, will cause players to have to settle to do versus not. However, I think there are some guys like LaMarcus Aldridge, for example, with the San Antonio Spurs, who, has opted straight from the gate, he's rehabbing his body and getting ready for next season. And, I think that at the end of the day, there are so many things that are just being tossed around and thrown around. But from all indications, I'll just say that it seems as though, the NBA is likely to go to Disney World and, resume this season.
When they do get there, because we know that there's these multiple week gaps. You have tomorrow, the players have to declare if they're going or not. A few weeks from that is going to be the actual training camps. A few weeks from that is them actually doing the exhibitions and then the games. Do you feel that the schedule that the NBA put forward is something that the players themselves are comfortable with?
I don't think they really have a choice. I think if you have the guys who are looking to make money by playing and, preparing themselves to do that, like LeBron James, I think you kind of got to go with the cards that are being handed to you. The living conditions in those hotels and seem to be, I was looking online, taking a cursory look at just those hotels and the amenities. Seem like nice villas, but I think, you bring a training staff, you bring, what's familiar to you. I think you're trying to recreate as close to what could be an NBA court and NBA season as possible. But I think a lot of it is just playing, and we'll see what happens.
It's been referenced that whoever wins the NBA champion this year might deserve the most credit because it's going to be what's been referred to. I've heard multiple people say this, a war of attrition. Do you agree with that? Do you think that we should give almost more credit to whoever wins the NBA championship this year than in previous years?
I think that the two best teams in the NBA have been the Milwaukee Bucks and the Los Angeles Lakers. And I think that the Lakers have had time to sit and rest their bones, with this time off. But I also think that the Clippers, are a team that everybody thought would be just this, this juggernaut. And, they've rested players and done more throughout the course of the season. I had Ryan Hollins on the Scooby Radio podcast today. Actually, you can subscribe on all platforms to listen. And, his stance was the Clippers would be the it team. He feels like that shift has kind of changed, particularly with LeBron, working out and being, just LeBron and, Anthony Davis and Danny Green, some of these other guys getting rest. I don't know necessarily that I think they should get more credit because I remember there was a time when, there should be an asterisk next to their name. I think that perception and what people think changes every other day. But I'll use this as an example. I remember the lockout shortened season, 98-99. The Spurs ended up winning. And everyone's like, the Spurs deserve an asterisk next to their name. But then, they began to just continue to produce championships, So I think, it's believed that they deserve that championship. I think it's the Lakers, the Bucks, or the Clippers, do win a championship. I think it's what was supposed to happen because, they played good basketball. However, I'll add, the Portland Trailblazers, to me, were in the Western Conference Finals last season and, dealt with injuries coming into this season. So I think that the Blazers, if they were to get anywhere close to that, I think just with the storylines of Melo, C.J. McCollum, and, Damian Lillard and more, if they deserve that situation. I know keeping it local with the Sixers, they've dealt with injuries and more, in that circumstance. So I think anybody who got a lot of rest and, were able to come out and win a championship, they deserved it because they put in the work.
Brandon, before I let you go, I got to put you on the spot, ask you one question.
What's that?
Will Jamal Crawford be in the NBA bubble?
I talked to Jamal last week. He said he hasn't heard from anybody yet. But I know outside of Jamal, there are teams that could use Jamal. I think the Nets would be a good team, depending on what they do and who they bring. The Orlando Magic, would be another team there. So I'd like to see Jamal, but I also want Jamal to be healthy. He has kids, he has a wife, and, I just wish the best for Jamal because he's a good guy, and I think he's been slighted.
I just know the guy's an automatic bucket. I know that, that guy could be very valuable for an NBA team trying to, make a playoff run in a very strange environment. We've seen how many times Jamal was able to score and nobody expected it at times.
Yeah, I think the Sixers could use him. We'll see.
Well, absolutely will. Of course, you want to know what's going on. You want to follow Brandon Robinson at Scoop B on Twitter. Check out the podcast as well, Scoop B Radio, as well guests. Brandon Robinson appeared right here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. My friend, appreciate the time today.
My brother, thank you for allowing me to be myself.